The name on the resume hit me like a ghost from a past I had buried deep. Mark Tanner. It wasn't a common name, not around here, and as I stared at the crisp black letters on my monitor, the carefully constructed walls of my life began to tremble. The man I had become, the CEO of a successful software company, vanished. In his place was a skinny, terrified 12-year-old boy, smelling the damp concrete of a school basement. Mark Tanner, my childhood bully. And he had just applied for a job at my company. My first instinct was primal. A visceral urge to drag the file to the trash, to delete his existence from my world just as easily as I would a piece of spam. It would be simple. He would get a form rejection email, or more likely just silence. He would never know how close he had come to the boy he once tormented. He wouldn't know that the worm he used to crush under his heel now owned the entire garden. But then, a different feeling began to bubble up from the pit of my stomach. It was dark and cold, but it was also electrifying. It was an idea so potent, just that it made the hair on my arm stand up. Deleting the application was letting him go. It was avoidance. The same avoidance I had practiced for years. Running from the memories, running from the confrontation I never got. No, not this time. This time, I wouldn't run. My fingers, moving with a will of their own, typed a reply to my HR manager. "This one looks promising," I wrote. "I'll handle the initial screening myself. Please schedule a video interview for him, with me." For the next 2 days I was barely present in my own life. During meetings, my mind would drift. I'd be looking at a spreadsheet of quarterly projections, but seeing Mark's sneering face as he held me down while his friends emptied my backpack into a puddle. I'd be discussing a new software patch with my lead developers, but hearing his voice dripping with contempt as he called me names I haven't let another human being call me since. The memories I had locked away in a lead-lined box in the back of my mind were now swarming free, and they were venomous. It wasn't just the big things, the moments of sharp physical pain. It was the slow, grinding erosion of my self-worth. It was the daily dread of walking to school. The way I would make my body small, trying to become invisible. The way I'd eat my lunch in a bathroom stall, because the cafeteria felt like a gladiator's arena where I was the main event. Mark wasn't just a bully. He was an artist of cruelty. He knew how to find the exact thing that would hurt the most. He once found a small book of poems I had written. It was my most private, precious possession. He didn't just tear it up, he read it aloud to his circle of friends, his voice mocking every clumsy rhyme, every heartfelt line. I can still hear their laughter. It echoes in my quietest moments, even now, 20 years later. I thought I had moved past it. I'd gone to therapy. I'd built a fortress of success around myself. This company wasn't just a business to me. It was my proof. Proof that I wasn't the weak, worthless thing he had made me believe I was. Every contract I won, every product we launched, was another brick in that fortress. But seeing his name showed me a terrible truth. The fortress was built on a foundation of sand, and the tide was coming in. The only way to make it solid was to face the storm that had created it. The day of the interview arrived. I sat in my spacious office, the city skyline sprawling behind me. I had deliberately chosen not to use the standard sterile interview room. I wanted him to see this, to see where I was. I adjusted my webcam, making sure the view was perfect. My heart was a drum against my ribs, a frantic, wild rhythm. I was terrified, and I was thrilled. His face appeared on the screen. Time had been interesting to him. The cruel, sharp features of his youth had softened into a doughy roundness. His hairline was making a strategic retreat. The confident, arrogant glint in his eyes was gone, replaced by something I recognized instantly: anxiety. The polite, nervous smile of someone who really needs a job. He didn't recognize me, not even a flicker. Of course not. I was no longer the scrawny, hunched-over kid with oversized glasses. I had grown into my frame. I wore a tailored shirt and a calm, professional mask. To him I was just another corporate gatekeeper. The power imbalance was so vast, so absolute, it was almost dizzying. "Mr. Tanner," I began, my voice steady, betraying none of the chaos inside me. "Thank you for your time today. I'm Alex Peterson, the CEO of Innovate Solutions." I used my full name, Alexander Peterson. Back then, everyone just called me Alex. But even so, he didn't connect the dots. A worm doesn't grow up to be a CEO. In his mind, I had probably just faded into the obscurity he thought I deserved. "Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mr. Peterson," he said, his voice earnest. "I'm a huge admirer of what you've built here. Really groundbreaking stuff." The praise felt like ash in my mouth. I steered the conversation to his resume. I asked the standard questions. "Tell me about your strengths. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" He gave polished, rehearsed answers. He talked about being a team player, about synergy, and proactive leadership. A team player. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. Then I started to deviate from the script. My script. "Tell me, Mark," I said, my tone shifting just enough to put him on edge. "Tell me about a time you had to deal with a conflict. A situation where you had power over someone else who was, let's say, not as popular or strong as you. How did you handle that?" He blinked. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. It was an odd question. Well, in a professional setting, it's all about respect," he stammered, falling back on corporate jargon. "You have to create a positive environment for everyone to thrive. But what about before you were a professional?" I pressed gently. "High school, for instance. High school can be a tough environment. Did you ever find yourself in a position of power over a weaker classmate?" He was visibly uncomfortable now. He shifted in his chair. "I mean, high school was a long time ago, Mr. Peterson. I was focused on sports, mostly. I tried to be friends with everyone. Lies. Beautiful, transparent lies." He was squirming. The powerful, terrifying giant of my youth was squirming under the weight of a simple question. This was better than I ever imagined. I let him off the hook, for now. I guided the interview to a close. "Well, Mark, you have an impressive resume, but we have a rather unique final stage for candidates we're serious about. We give them a short-term project to see how they think on their feet. It's a paid project, of course. A 1-week contract. If we're happy with the results, we'll proceed with an offer. Are you interested?" His eyes lit up. The desperation was back, but this time it was mixed with hope. "Absolutely. Yes, whatever it takes." "Excellent," I said, a slow, cold smile spreading inside me, one that I kept carefully off my face. "HR will be in touch with the details of the project. I look forward to seeing what you come up with." I ended the call and leaned back in my chair, my body trembling with the adrenaline of it all. This was just the beginning. I wasn't going to just reject him. That was too merciful. I was going to make him work for it. I was going to make him bleed for it, metaphorically speaking. I was going to make him walk through a hall of mirrors, and I was going to force him to look at every single reflection. The project I designed for him was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive revenge. On the surface, it looked like a legitimate, if slightly unusual, corporate task. Our company was, I told him in the project brief, exploring a new philanthropic initiative. The initiative was an anti-bullying campaign. His task was to develop a comprehensive proposal for this campaign. He had to research the long-term psychological effects of childhood bullying. He had to prepare a report detailing its impact on adult anxiety, depression, and career prospects. He had to interview anonymous subjects. I would provide the transcripts, of course, who had been victims of bullying and synthesize their experiences into a powerful narrative for potential donors. He then had to create a marketing slogan and a short video concept designed to raise awareness. Every single part of the project was a nail I was hammering into his past. The transcripts I sent him were, of course, not from anonymous subjects. They were from me. I spent an entire night writing out my own experiences, my own pain, but framed as the stories of 3 different people. I described being locked in a storage closet. I described having my lunch money stolen every day for a year. I described in excruciating detail having a book of my own poems read aloud and mocked in front of a laughing crowd. I sent it all to him and waited. For the next week, my life revolved around watching him. I had it give him a temporary company email and access to a shared drive for his project. I could see every time he logged on. I could see every document he created, every revision he made. I watched him dive into the research. I saw the academic papers he downloaded, the enduring scars of peer victimization, bully victims, and adult psychopathology. I saw him build a presentation, the slides filled with bullet points about PTSD, social anxiety, and suicidal ideation. He was in effect being forced to study the very wounds he had inflicted. He would email me with questions, his tone always professionally deferential. "Mr. Peterson, I have a draft of the report on psychological impacts. Would you have a moment to glance at it?" I would let his emails sit for hours, sometimes a full day, before replying. I remembered what it was like to wait for him, to wait for the punch, to wait for the insult, the gnawing uncertainty. I was giving him a taste of that same helplessness. My replies would be short, critical. "This needs more emotional weight, Mark. I'm not feeling the gravity of the situation. The data is fine, but I need you to focus on the human cost." I was pushing him, prodding him, making him dig deeper and deeper into the dirt. Halfway through the week, something interesting happened. In one of his draft reports, I saw a new section he had added. It was titled "The Bully's Perspective." He was trying to be thorough, I guess. He wrote about peer pressure, about troubled home lives, about the cyclical nature of aggression. He was trying to rationalize the behavior, to put it in a neat academic box. But then at the end of the section, he wrote a single hesitant sentence. "In some cases, the aggressor may not fully comprehend the extent of the damage they are causing, viewing their actions as simple jokes or harmless teasing." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Was that how he saw it? A joke? Did he really have no idea? The rage, which had cooled into a focused, icy resolve, began to burn hot again. Harmless teasing. I still had a faint scar above my eyebrow from where he'd slammed my head into a locker. Harmless. The day of his final presentation arrived. I scheduled it for 5 p.m. on a Friday, making him sweat it out through the entire week. I booked the main boardroom, a large, intimidating space with a long mahogany table and 24 empty chairs. I sat at the head of the table. He sat at the far end. The distance between us was a chasm. He looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes. He had clearly poured everything he had into this project. He set up his laptop, his hands shaking slightly. "Whenever you're ready, Mark," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the big, empty room. He began. He walked me through the research, his voice reciting the statistics of pain and trauma he had compiled. He talked about the lifelong burden carried by victims. He was good. He was articulate. He had done the work. Then he got to the human stories section. He put the first transcript I had written on the big screen. The story of Subject A, who was locked in a storage closet and missed the final exam for a class he was failing, causing him to have to attend summer school. Mark's voice faltered for a second as he read it. Just a tiny catch. I watched him, my face a mask of stone. Did he remember? Was there any spark of recognition? He moved to the next one. Subject B, who had his most prized possession, a gift from his late grandfather, a vintage watch, stolen and broken. Another one of my doctored stories, a variation on a theme. Finally, he came to Subject C, the boy who wrote poems. He put the description on the screen. He began to read aloud about how the boy's notebook was snatched, how the bully read the personal, heartfelt words in a mocking, cruel voice to a crowd of jeering classmates. As he spoke the words I had written, the words that described my own deepest humiliation, his voice grew quieter. He stopped. He cleared his throat. He looked down at his notes, then back up at the screen. He looked at me, a strange, dawning horror in his eyes. The room was silent. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound. I let the silence stretch, letting it press down on him. Then I spoke, my voice soft, but carrying the weight of 20 years. "The poems weren't even that bad, were they, Mark?" His face went white. All the color drained from it, leaving behind a pasty, sickly pallor. His mouth opened but no sound came out. He stared at me, truly seeing me for the first time. The professional mask of Alex Peterson, CEO, dissolved, and in its place, he saw the face of the boy he used to call Worm. He whispered. The name was a ghost on his lips. "Alex? Peterson? You preferred other names for me," I said, my voice still quiet, but now edged with steel. "What was it? Worm? Specs? What was the one you carved into my desk in Mr. Henderson's science class?" He flinched as if I had physically struck him. He looked around the empty boardroom, at the symbols of my success, and then back at me. The carefully constructed reality he had been living in for the past week shattered into a million pieces. This wasn't a job interview. It was a reckoning. I don't, he stammered, his eyes wide with panic. Don't? What? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I walked slowly around the long table, my footsteps echoing. Don't? Remember? I do. I remember everything. I remember the taste of muddy water when you pushed my face into that puddle. I remember the sound my glasses made when they cracked against the pavement. I remember sitting in a bathroom stall, crying so hard I couldn't breathe, because of something you said. Do you remember? Mark? Do you remember any of it? Tears were welling in his eyes. Not tears of remorse, not yet. Tears of fear. He was trapped. The tables had turned so completely, so brutally, that he couldn't process it. I needed this job, he whispered, a pathetic, desperate plea. My wife? My kids? Your kids, I repeated, stopping directly in front of him. I leaned down, my hands flat on the table, my face inches from his. Do you teach them to be strong, Mark? Do you teach them to pick on the weak ones? To find someone smaller and crush them to make themselves feel big? Is that the kind of man your kids look up to? A sob escaped his lips, a raw, ugly sound. No? He choked out. No, I'm not that person anymore. Aren't you? I asked. That person got you here. That person made you so confident, so arrogant, that you never even bothered to learn the names of the people you hurt. You trampled over people to get ahead, and you never once looked back at the footprints you left on their faces. Until today. Today you are looking back. I straightened up. Your project. You wrote that a bully might not comprehend the damage they're causing. Was that you, Mark? Were you just too stupid to understand? Or did you know? Did you enjoy it? He was shaking his head, mumbling incoherently. And then he said something that stopped me cold. It was Jason. He croaked, looking up at me, his face a mess of tears and sweat. It was always Jason. Jason. Jason Croft. The name hit me with the force of a physical blow. Jason was the third member of their little group. Mark was the muscle. Another boy named Kevin was the lookout. But Jason was the architect. He was smarter than Mark, quieter. He was the one who came up with the ideas, the one who would whisper in Mark's ear. I had always focused my hatred on Mark because he was the one whose fists did the work, whose voice shouted the insults. But Jason was the poison in the water. What about Jason? I demanded. He pushed it, Mark said, his voice gaining a sliver of strength as he shifted the blame. He told me if I didn't toughen up, if I didn't do what he said, then I'd be next. He was scary, Alex. Scarier than me. He enjoyed it in a way I didn't. He used to tell me what to do, what to say. The book of poems, that was his idea. He found it. He told me to read it. I was afraid of him too. I stared at him. Was this just another lie? A desperate attempt to save himself? Or was there a shred of truth in it? I thought back, and the memories shifted. I remembered Jason, always lurking in the background, a thin smile on his face, watching, always watching. He was never the one to throw the punch, but he was always there when it landed. Mark's confession didn't excuse him. It didn't absolve him of a single moment of pain he had caused me. He still made the choice, every single day, to be cruel, but it did reframe the picture. It added a new layer of darkness, a new villain to the story I thought I knew so well. I had come here for revenge on one man, but the real monster, the puppet master, had been living rent-free in my head, completely unrecognized. For 2 decades, I looked at Mark, this broken middle-aged man, sobbing at a conference table he could never hope to own. I had wanted to destroy him, to see him utterly ruined, and I had the power to do it. One phone call, and he'd be blacklisted from every tech firm in the city. I could obliterate his career with a single email. The rage was still there. The hurt was still there. But the exhilarating thrill of the hunt was gone, replaced by a profound hollow emptiness. This wasn't victory. This was just sad. He was a pathetic pawn, and I had spent my entire adult life hating a pawn instead of the king. Get out, I said, my voice flat. He looked up, confused. What? Your project is complete. Your 1-week contract is over. HR will process your payment. Now get your things and get out of my building. But the job? He asked, a flicker of that pathetic hope returning. I almost laughed. The job? There is no job, Mark. There was never a job for you here. This was the job. Researching what you did, presenting it to me. That was it. You succeeded. Now your work is done. The finality in my voice crushed the last of his hope. He understood. He slowly, shakily, packed his laptop into his bag. He didn't look at me. He shuffled towards the door like an old man. He paused at the doorway, his hand on the handle. Alex, he said, his back still to me. I'm sorry. For what it's worth. It's not worth anything to me, I replied, my voice cold as ice. But maybe it's worth something to you. Maybe now you'll finally understand. He opened the door and left. I stood alone in the vast silent boardroom, the lights of the city beginning to sparkle outside. I had done it. I had faced my bully. And I had won. He was broken. I had my confession. I had my apology. As worthless as it was, but I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel the catharsis I had craved for so long. The revenge felt hollow because I had aimed it at the wrong target. Mark was a weapon, but Jason Croft was the one who had aimed him and pulled the trigger. I walked back to my desk and sat down. The fortress of my success no longer felt like a monument to my strength. It felt like a bunker I had been hiding in. The real war wasn't over. It hadn't even truly begun. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I wasn't searching for job candidates anymore. I was searching for Jason Croft. The hunt for Mark Tanner was over, but the hunt for the real monster had just begun. And this time, I wouldn't be hiding. This time, I would be the one in the shadows, watching and waiting. Thank you for watching. It took me a long time to decide if I should even share this story, but I felt like I needed to. If you've ever felt like this, or if you were moved by this story, please let me know in the comments below. Your support means the world to me. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more stories, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you.